I was born during a brutal era of my country's troubled history. World War II had just ended, and most people in my home city, Leningrad, were damaged beyond repair, physically and mentally. Soviet citizens had learned the hard way never to trust anyone. We beat Hitler by stooping to his level and using our own brand of brutality and violence to turn the Nazis around and force them into a bloody retreat. As one well-known Russian psychiatrist later put it, Hitler turned us into a nation of damaged and flawed people. I must have seemed shy and naive when I was growing up. I was so small in stature that I presumed people didn't notice me. I never gave much consideration to the disadvantages of being a female. I just took it for granted that I was a second-class citizen. Surviving was hard enough without worrying about whether being a woman made it harder. But there is no question that women had far less opportunities inside a nation ruled by bitter and twisted middle-aged men, a million miles away from Lenin's original socialist philosophies. In my case, all the males I grew up around dominated everything when I was a child. Then some bad things happened to me, and I quietly retreated into my own head. I didn't bother much with the outside world. I dealt with life and all the problems I faced by never trusting a soul. I told no one about my experiences. I thought this would enable me to move on. It also meant I was never much of a team player growing up either. The only sport I liked was swimming, because I didn't have to talk to anyone while I was doing it. I was entirely alone. Everything was down to me and no one else. Even after I was recruited, or perhaps I should say tricked, into the KGB, I concluded that saying little or nothing was the best way to survive in such a dark and dangerous subterranean world. I ended up in an orphanage during my early teenage years. There the staff shut me down or tried to control me. I became like a caged animal, forever pacing up and down, waiting for an opportunity to escape. When one of the supervisors lured me and some of the other girls into his darkened office and forced us to watch American porn films with him, I'd had enough. I skipped out on the place that evening. On the mean streets of Leningrad, I quickly learned to survive by reading other people's body language. It was the difference between life and death. I lived by my wits until just after my 19th birthday. I met a man who said that if I slept with him, he'd get me a job as a chambermaid in Leningrad's prestigious Hotel October, with a room to live in. I was deeply suspicious of what he might do to me. I'd heard stories about street girls like me being raped and then murdered by predator men. But on the other hand, I recognized this might be my only chance to make something of my life. I took an enormous gamble and trusted him not to hurt me. And that's how I got on the pathway to a life of espionage. My job in the hotel was repetitive and boring. Usually there was an under-manager standing over me, watching my every move. Each day was the same. Unlock the hotel guest room, clean the toilets and bath, then remake the bed before vacuuming the floor. I was ordered not to change the sheets more than twice a week to save money. Trying to cover up the stains and scuff marks was more time-consuming than replacing them with clean ones. It didn't make any financial sense. Still, this was the Soviet Union. There were precious few thriving businesses at the time. Guests weren't made particularly welcome at the Hotel October either. They were usually treated with suspicion and contempt, especially if they were foreign. In many ways, my job summed up my life in the Soviet Union back in the early 1970s. We were living in a grey, impenetrable bubble that ensured most citizens had few opinions about the outside world beyond the borders of our beloved motherland. But inside my head, I questioned everything.